Kimani?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So,
Yeah,
Kimani, as we discussing about the Africa we want, so looking from your perspective, how do we go about this in ensuring that as not the future generation for us, because sometimes we've been talking about the problem, looking at the solution. So, from your own perspective, how do we go about get the Africa we want?
yeah. Well, thank you for having me. Uh, my name is Kimani Adam. I'm the CEO for Nature Expeditions Group. We're a tour operator across Africa. We're based in Nairobi, Kenya.
Okay.
Um, the main thing I think in the next, within the next 30 or so years, we need to obviously open up the licensing across for any business across Africa as the borders break down for business. That's the first thing. Um, Second thing, from that, we need to achieve economies of scale in order to compete globally. Um, that's the biggest thing for us right now, especially being in tourism in the tourism industry. Um, we're seeing a lot of barriers to entry across different nations within our own continent. So once we break down those barriers completely through agreements with the African Union and particular governments in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, we'll definitely achieve a lot more competition globally, and therefore we'll definitely achieve the GDP growth that we've always wanted um, across Africa. Um, can you hear me? I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
we can hear you. Go on.
Okay. And so that's obviously the main challenge as we speak. I've also heard a couple of points of education. That's the biggest thing, of course, because um, if a lot more of our younger population, which obviously we have the youngest population um, across the world right now in Africa, if we get them into doing bachelor's and master programs and a higher quality for our universities, we'll definitely see a lot more coming into the continent a lot faster. Um, therefore, our targets will be more realized within definitely 20 to 30 years if we actually improve the quality of our universities, our primary, secondary education, and even just um, having a diaspora coming back to Africa. You'll be surprised the conferences that I go out in Europe and States and South America. We have so much diaspora working in global companies, but we need them to come back and actually starting companies in Africa and improving the GDP within Africa. So from an economic perspective, it's the barriers and education. I mean, obviously, the last topic is corruption, which we all know is rampant across Africa. in many instances, I've come across a lot of issues with that. So we need to obviously put down the corruption and therefore clamp down on it and make sure that we have a seamless process in working together in achieving the best Africa we want in the next 20 or 30 years. Obviously, the objectives that we have is until for 23, but I think we can get down on this within the next 20, 30 years if we're really serious. And the more serious we are in actually, also the thing is we also have to hold our politicians accountable. Stop giving in to what they want. And the more we stop doing that, the more they'll actually start being a bit more serious, and therefore we will come to a ground whereby we can now improve the lives of people in the continent in many industries across the board. So I mean, those are the main things that in my mind that
Okay, can I ask you this?
Yeah. Yeah.
You talk about diaspora. I think that has been one of our biggest problem as African. We've been talking about the Africa we want. We've talked about issues, problem. Nigeria alone. I was watching a documentary that actually said African Americans in the United States of America. When you look about the percentage of those in professional jobs like medical doctors, when you talk about ICT and so on and so forth, they gave certain percentage that is very much impressive of Africans in the United States of America that are based, instead of coming back home, investing or actually uh, mitigating themselves with us and still be able to build Africa together. But they all been residents either in the United States of America or in some other European countries. It has been challenging. We've been calling for them to come home. Recently, we also saw Ghana on a global campaign, coming back home, calling on African Americans to come back to their roots, to actually see how we're able to leverage on some of those problems. So, in giving your points, how do you see us addressing this problem of attracting those Africans in the diaspora to come back home and invest in Africa?
Given the current political events happening in the States as we speak, back in the 80s and the 90s, people would always want to go to the States because they want to achieve the American dream. And America basically created that you can achieve anything. Um, that was in the 80s. But the thing is, we have to change our mentality in saying, no, in Africa, you can dream big as well. You can dream, you can achieve it. And obviously, it comes to mindset that if obviously we as leaders bring that idea to the younger people and say, hey, you know what, you can achieve better than me, you can do even beyond what we have done, and you can even do basically any, like you can be Elon Musk, you can be the next Bill Gates, but at the same time we have to create infrastructure for them to actually achieve that. So it's two angles, creating that infrastructure and also